Hello fellow YouTubers, Lionel Gecko here. This time we're going to talk about side decking. Now I'm going to show you the budget style that I use to side deck. I don't like buying all those expensive cards. However, through trading I have ended up with some of them. So I'm going to guide you through ways that are a little bit more complicated than usual, but you can incorporate in your deck. There are cards that your opponent is by far pretty much not expecting at all for you to play and may not have cards to counter you in their side deck. Let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, this is a lot more disorganized than what I'm used to showing you. It's because there was way too many combinations for the cards. I would have to show you cards simultaneously or the same card many times in order of the way to show you for how I had it divided. So I just spread it out as I could. We'll go through these ones one by one, and I'll show you a few of the combinations that have to be made over there. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, first off, we're going to be talking about one of the main factors that'll decide whether you win or lose. Sometimes it's not what cards you put in your side deck to help you fight another deck. It's how fast you can get out what you wanted to do. So, one of the side cards that you can use is called Reckless Greed, normal trap card. Now, the effect of Reckless Greed is that you can draw 2 cards, and after that, you skip your next 2 draw phases. Now, that might sound bad right now, but the effect of Reckless Greed does stack together. Meaning if you activate 2 or 3 Reckless Greeds at the same time, you do still only skip 2 draw phases. Also, let's say you activate 1 Reckless Greed, and that gives you another Reckless Greed with those 2 draws. You can set it, and during your opponent's turn, let's say he MSTs it, Mystical Space Typhoon, you can activate Reckless Greed to draw another 2 cards during your opponent's turn, and it's still gonna be only 2 draw phases. Now, the card that you can combo with it, Reckless Greed you should always play at 3. The combo that you could make is Offerings to the Doomed. Now, this card is a quick play spell card, and you destroy 1 face-up monster, but skip your next draw phase. It does also stack together with Reckless Greed. So if you activate all 3 Reckless Greeds, and during your opponent's turn you activate the Offerings to the Doomed, you only skip 2 draw phases, but you got rid of one of your opponent's monsters and added 6 new cards to your hand. Other ways that you may want to deal with your deck is with certain cards that will help you out. For instance, Enemy Controller is a card that you can use to your benefit, not just to defend yourself. You can change the battle position of an opponent's monster, or you can take control of an opponent's monster by tributing one of your own. So Enemy Controller, being a quick play spell card, could protect you during your turn, or you could use it to attack your opponent. Snatch Steal is very common nowadays. Let's say that you're a new player, you didn't get a hold of Snatch Steal when it was banned, cheap, and really easy to find. Enemy Controller could help you out. For instance, I put it here with my Blackwing deck, or cards from my Blackwing deck, because you could tribute Bayou, get them in your graveyard, take control of your opponent's monster, and use Bayou's effect to bring out another Synchro monster from your extra deck. Now, I wanted to point out some cards that you can use in decks, such as Delta Crow Anti-Reverse, Icarus Attack, and Black Sonic. These are all cards that I put here because Icarus Attack will always be main decked, but is one of the strongest points in Blackwings. Delta Crow and Black Sonic are kind of optional, but they are great cards to use either against a deck with a lot of back row, which is everybody's enemy, or Black Sonic, which banishes all of your opponent's monsters that are in face-up attack position, face-up on the field, I'm sorry, when they attack a Blackwing monster. So basically, if you're fighting against Necros, if you're fighting against Cliffords, if you're fighting against Shaddolls, Burning Abyss, they're not going to make it to that graveyard, or they're not going to make it back into that deck. So they're not your problem anymore. Now another big thing that you can do against your opponent is make him shift around the way that he has to play. I just showed you Blackwings, who work off of being winged beasts. The second reason I showed you them is to give you a good example of why these cards can help. For instance, against Boojins and stuff like that. Zombie World, obviously a card that you would play in a zombie deck mostly. However, there are some decks that work off of their name more than what type they are. So playing Zombie World would not affect that deck. And if you're playing against a deck that is affected by it, it's a perfect card to play. It doesn't occupy your part of the field, it occupies your field zone, so you can still play those 5 back rows, since we are going to be talking a lot about continuous traps. The other one is it's a little bit more complicated, but it does work a lot better. It's cheaper than DNA Surgery. Ivy Shackles makes your opponent's monsters plants during your turn. So, for instance, if a Blackwing deck sets Icarus Attack, getting ready to destroy whatever you play, but you already have that Ivy Shackles set and you activate it, then they're not winged beasts anymore, and Icarus Attack won't work until the next turn. By then, it might be too late. When Ivy Shackles is destroyed by your opponent, you get to draw 1 card, so it speeds you up. Also, as long as Ivy Shackles is face up on the field during your turn, your opponent's monsters are now plants. Fragrant Storm destroys a monster on either player's side of the field as long as it's a plant type. Then you draw 1 card. And if you draw a plant type, you draw 1 more card. Obviously, if you're playing a plant type deck, Fragrant Storm is better. But with the plant engine being so popular, Fragrant Storm might help a lot more players, and Ivy Shackles can help you pretty well in general. So you could potentially draw 9 cards right here. And of course, the number 1 type changer, DNA Surgery. When you activate this card, you declare 1 type of monster. As long as this card remains face up on the field, all face up monsters become the type you declared. This can be used to help yourself out. For instance, if you don't have any winged beast monsters on the field, going back to that Blackwing example, you can activate DNA Surgery, then snatch steal whatever monster you want from them, activate Icarus Attack by tributing their monster, and you destroy 2 of their cards. Or something like that. Now, dark monsters are really common in a lot of decks, so if you're running a wind deck, it's easy to splash some dark monsters in there. The example I'm going to give you is the example that I use myself, which is in my Junk Doppel deck. Now, my Junk Doppel deck has really easy access to wind and dark tuners with Turbo Synchron, Unknown Synchron, Quick Draw Synchron, and Junk Synchron. With the spell card tuning, I can add whichever one I want to my hand. Now, Dark Simorgh can be normal summoned or tributed, and he can also be special summoned by banishing a wind and a dark from my hand to revive him from the graveyard, or a wind and a dark from the graveyard to special summon him from the hand. Now, he doesn't let my opponent set any spells or traps, any cards, monsters. And Anti-Spell Fragrance makes it so that your opponent has to set spells. You and your opponent must set spell cards for 1 turn, just like traps, before using them. So this combination of Dark Simorgh and Anti-Spell Fragrance makes it so that your opponent can't play any back row. Turbo Synchron is a side deck for me because I just take out an Unknown Synchron and add a Turbo Synchron to give myself more flexibility with my Quasar plays, so I can summon Shooting Quasar Dragon and Dark Simorgh in the same hand. Another good side deck that I main deck is Thunder Dragon. Thunder Dragon you want to run 3 copies of as well, and you can discard them from your hand to the graveyard to add up to 2 copies of Thunder Dragon from your deck to your hand. This will thin your deck, speeding you up even more, but it gets lights into your graveyard. Let's say that you run the kind of dark deck that doesn't really want to use Light Swarms or any other light that's easily splashable. So you can run Thunder Dragon to get more hand control, thin your deck, and now you can use the Chaos monsters like BLS, and Chaos Sorcerer, especially against stuff like Shaddolls, Nekros, stuff that struggles with remove from play. That might be the way that you want to go. It also kind of shifts around the way that your deck will actually work, which your opponent might be siding for whatever deck you had before, and you pretty much made it a Chaos deck now, so he has to deal with that, which he probably wasn't ready for. You may want to side deck as the little Lightsworn engine. This usually consists of 2 Raikos and 1 Lyla. That was back in the day. Now there's this level 4 Lightsworn tuner. I didn't bother to get him because I got Thunder Dragons, and to me that's better. Lyla's somewhere there. So basically this is for decks that like to mill cards like a version of the Junk Doppel deck does. It'll speed them up, it'll get lights in there, and Raiko specifically is a flip effect monster. He can destroy a card on the field and then mill 3 cards. So that'll speed you up and get rid of one of your opponent's cards that you just can't deal with. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about here is something that I'm using in my deck right now just for fun, but it's working pretty good. So one of the spells is Burden of the Mighty. Burden of the Mighty against Nekros combined with Slifer the Sky Dragon is working pretty well for me. Each face-up monster your opponent controls loses 100 attack times the level that it has. So, for instance, the big ritual monsters, let's just say Brionek, will lose 600 attack. Now he's at less than 2,000. It doesn't matter how much attack he had, he's less than 2,000, and that makes it so that Slifer's effect will kick in. Now this is a really long text, so I'm going to go ahead and pick it up and read it to you without showing you. Now, Slifer the Sky Dragon requires 3 tributes to be normal summoned, and he cannot be set. This card's normal summon cannot be negated. When normal summoned, cards and effects cannot be activated, so you cannot Solemn Warning him. When normal summoned, during the end phase, if this card was special summoned, send it to the graveyard. Now this card gains 1000 attack and defense for each card in your hand. When a monster or monsters is normal or special summoned to your opponent's side of the field in face-up attack position, that monster loses 2000 attack. Then, if its attack has been reduced to 0 as a result, destroy it. So, Slifer the Sky Dragon at the very least will reduce your opponent's attack points to the point where you don't really care how much attack he had. And he gains 1000 attack for each card that you have in your hand. So in a draw power heavy deck like my Junk Doppel deck that can easily tribute monsters with Level Leader, the Doppel tokens, he's easy to bring out. He'll be strong enough to protect himself. I'm also using Mound of the Bound Creator, which protects him even further. And my opponent at the very least is going to have to special summon in defense, which means he's not attacking me. Even if he gets rid of my field, I can still come back because I did not take any damage. Soul Charge into cards that can destroy all of the cards that he played will work. And also there's this trap card called All Out Attack, which forces face-up monsters to be placed into face-up attack mode. So my opponent will have to play monsters in attack, and they will be destroyed. Sorry for the mess. I know I've been stumbling a lot making the video. I don't know if you noticed on my hand I got married, and I've been a little bit tired, but I got some time off, and I figured I'd make a video. It's apparently not working so well, but I'm gonna go ahead and continue. Come back for part 2 of how to side deck.